All right, so today we're diving deep into the mind of one of the most influential economic thinkers ever, John Maynard Keynes.
Yep, this guy was a total rock star economist, way ahead of his time.
We're talking about the guy who basically rewrote the rules of how we think about money and government, especially
Yeah.
during those wild economic storms,
Yeah,
like depressions and recessions.
definitely. And for this deep dive, we're cracking open his essays in Persuasion. This book is like a time capsule of Keynes' thoughts on the major economic events that shaped his world.
Yeah, we're talking the aftermath of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles, the Roaring Twenties, and of course the big one, the Great Depression.
Talk about a front row seat to some of the biggest economic dramas in history.
So Keynes was right there in the thick of it, watching these events unfold and realizing the old economic playbook just wasn't cutting it anymore.
And he wasn't afraid to call out the flaws and propose some pretty radical ideas.
Like his take on the Treaty of Versailles, like
Yeah.
many, he wasn't a fan.
He absolutely slammed it. He argued that forcing Germany to pay those massive reparations was a recipe for economic disaster.
Not to mention pretty morally questionable too, right?
Right. He was basically like, guys, this isn't just about punishing Germany. This is about creating a stable world for everyone.
But they didn't listen, did they?
Nope. And guess what? Keynes' predictions came true. Germany's economy tanked, resentment brewed, and well, we know what happened next.
Yeah, World War II. And it's crazy to think how his insights on the economic consequences of war are still so relevant today. When we think about modern conflicts and how to build lasting peace.
It all comes back to economics.
Yeah.
It's like Keynes was saying, if you want peace, you got to build a stable economic foundation. But the treaty wasn't the only thing Keynes challenged. He also took aim at another economic sacred cow, deflation.
Deflation. So like when prices go down, isn't that a good thing?
Well, back then, a lot of people thought so. They figured, hey, cheaper stuff means more people can buy it, right? But Keynes argued that deflation could actually make things worse, especially for unemployment.
Really? How so?
He pointed out that deflation could trap economies in a vicious cycle. Wages and prices drop so people have less money to spend. Then businesses see their sales plummet and they have to cut back even more, which leads to even more unemployment.
It's like a downward spiral.
Exactly, a deflationary death spiral. And you know what? We're still grappling with this idea today. As central banks try to manage inflation, they're always super careful not to tip the scales too far and trigger a deflationary episode.
So it's like this balancing act, trying to keep prices stable without sending the economy into a tailspin.
Exactly. So how did Keynes propose we fix all this economic turmoil?
Yeah, what was his secret sauce?
Well, he had this radical for its time idea. The government should actually step in and help, especially when the economy is tanking.
Wait, so the government should actually do something?
Yep. He was totally against that whole hands-off approach that was popular back then. The idea that the government should just stay out of the economy.
Laissez-faire, right.
Exactly. But Keynes argued that during a downturn, the government could actually boost demand by, spending money on public works projects.
So like building roads, bridges, schools, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Those projects create jobs, put money in people's pockets, and get the economy flowing again. It was a revolutionary idea that became a cornerstone of what we now call Keynesian economics.
And it makes you think about the 2008 financial crisis, when governments all over the world stepped in with those massive stimulus packages and bailouts.
Right. You can totally see Keynes' fingerprints all over those responses.
It's like his ideas were put to the test in the real world.
Yeah.
And they actually helped prevent a total economic meltdown.
Now, another key idea from Keynes was finding the right balance between saving and investment.
Okay, so he wasn't saying saving is bad?
No, not at all. He understood the importance of saving for the future, but he argued that if everyone just hoards their money, under their mattress or whatever, the economy would stagnate.
Yeah, because if no one's buying anything, businesses can't grow and new jobs aren't created.
Exactly. Keynes emphasized that investing in new businesses, new ideas, new projects, that's what drives economic growth.
So it's like a delicate dance between saving for a rainy day and investing in the future.
Right. It's all about finding that sweet spot. Putting some money aside, but also making sure enough is flowing back into the economy to keep things moving.
It's like a good recipe. You need the right mix of ingredients for it to work. But here's where things get even more interesting. Keynes wasn't just about numbers and graphs.
Oh, yeah. He was also fascinated by the psychology of economics.
The psychology. What do you mean by that?
Oh, he had this brilliant insight that emotions like confidence and optimism play a huge role in how people spend and invest.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you feel good about the future, you're more likely to buy a house or invest in the stock market, right?
Exactly. Then on the flip side, if everyone's scared and panicky, like during a recession, they're going to hold on to their cash.
So fear can actually lead to economic contraction.
Precisely. And Keynes had a name for these collective emotions that drive economic decisions. He called them animal spirits.
Animal spirits, I love that. It's like this primal force that's always lurking beneath the surface of the market.
And understanding these animal spirits is crucial to understanding how economies really work.
So it's not just about crunching numbers, it's about understanding human behavior too.
Exactly, which makes economics way more interesting than just looking at spreadsheets.
Totally. Now, it's important to remember that Keynes wasn't advocating for some kind of radical economic system, right?
Right, he wasn't a socialist or a hardcore free market capitalist. He was looking for a middle ground, a balanced approach.
Like a Goldilocks situation. Not too hot, not too cold, just right.
Exactly. He believed that the government should provide a safety net and intervene when needed, but also create an environment where businesses can thrive and innovate.
So kind of like a hybrid system, the best of both worlds.
Right. And this middle path that Keynes championed was incredibly influential in shaping what we now call the social market economy.
Which is the model we see in a lot of European countries, right?
Exactly. It's this fascinating blend of free markets with social safety nets and government regulation, trying to achieve that sweet spot between economic efficiency and social well-being.
And this is all thanks to Keynes' groundbreaking ideas.
Now, one more thing that I find super cool about Keynes is that he was actually quite optimistic about the future.
Really? Even after witnessing all those economic disasters?
Yep. He believed that technology and economic growth could eventually lead to a world where people work less and have more leisure time.
Like a 4-day work week.
Maybe even less. He saw a future where we wouldn't be slaves to work, but could focus on other pursuits like personal growth, creativity, and spending time with loved ones.
That's a pretty radical idea for his time, especially when you consider that back then most people worked 6 days a week.
Right. But Keynes believed that as technology advanced and productivity increased, we would reach a point where we could afford to work less without sacrificing our standard of living.
So basically work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. But he also stressed that to reach this future of leisure and abundance, we need to be smart about how we manage our resources.
Makes sense. I mean, it's not just about producing more stuff, it's about creating a better quality of life for everyone.
And that raises some big questions.
Yeah.
What would you do with all that extra free time? Would you travel, pursue hobbies, spend more time with loved ones? How would society change if work wasn't the center of everything?
It's mind-blowing to think about. It's like Keynes was challenging us to imagine a completely different way of life. A life where work isn't just about survival, but about fulfillment and personal growth.
And I think that's one of the most enduring legacies of Keynes' work. It's not just about economics. It's about imagining a better future and figuring out how to get there.
It's inspiring, isn't it? So to wrap things up, John Maynard Keynes, this guy who challenged conventions and dared to think differently, left a legacy that continues to shape our world today.
His insights into government intervention, the power of demand, and the psychology behind economic decisions are as relevant now as they were back then.
And as we navigate the complexities of our own economic landscape, it's important to remember those animal spirits. Whether it's your own gut feeling about an investment or the general mood of the market, those emotions are powerful forces that can shape the future.
And who knows, maybe someday Keynes' vision of a world with more leisure and less work will become a reality.
One can only hope. Well, that's our deep dive into the mind of John Maynard Keynes.
A true economic visionary.
Until next time, keep those animal spirits in check, and thanks for listening.
Years.